Does it matter whether you believe?
You think the wolf
Cares if you believe he's a wolf? Not if he...
Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge.
And I'm Ashley Sledge.
And let's talk horror. So today we're going to be talking about 2020's The Dark and the Wicked. Now, this is a movie that if you've been a fan of the channel for any amount of time, you've heard Ashley and I singing the praises of this film for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
This is a film that we both genuinely enjoy. And for the very first time in a long time, it's a film that really, really scared me.
Yeah, this is the type of film that you watch and you're like, maybe I'm not so desensitized when it comes to horror. It like brings it back out in you.
Exactly. So we're very excited for you guys to see the twists and turns that affected us throughout The Dark and the Wicked. Would you like to get us started, my love?
Absolutely. So the movie begins on a goat farm. We see an older woman. She's singing and making a dress when she hears some wind chimes clanking together. So she walks into the barn, trying to kind of settle her goats down.
Mm-hmm.
The woman goes back into the house and sits next to her sick husband. When she begins to write her journal, when you hear a loud wolf howl in the distance, which startles her. Then outside in the barn, you hear the bottles clanking together again. And this is when you see among the sheep a demon.
So what I love about this, we didn't catch this on first watch.
I caught it. Yes, I did. I caught it.
But when you're watching this and you actually see that demon there in the ghost, I just think that's so brilliant. They never pull any attention to it. Even later on in the movie, it's not like they have a flashback to it. It's just, here it is. There's the demon. That's it.
Mm-hmm. So back inside, the woman is now cutting up some onions when the chair behind her just moves by itself.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I'm sure that's kind of scary for her.
I love her reaction. She's just like...
Yeah, like it's normal, like a normal everyday. It's now Monday, and her daughter comes to visit them.
Right. The daughter walks in as mom is covering up dad. Mom says, your brother got here a couple hours ago.
I told y'all not to come. I told you we were gonna.
What an amazing tagline for the movie, by the way. She told you not to come. Louise is like, yeah, you know, we did. Her name's Louise, the daughter. Mm-hmm. She's like, I told you we were coming. We were gonna be here. Mother says you don't need to be here. And Louise drives out on the property to see her brother Michael and longtime family friend Charlie, who lives on the property. And they're out there right now trying to change a tire.
Charlie tells them he's glad that they came to visit their parents. So at dinner time, Mom gets upset and says, you never listened to me. You don't need to be here. Go home, and walks away. Louise, she goes out. She's smoking. She asks Michael, like, what is that? Like, what's going on? And Michael says, everyone deals with, things in their own way. Yeah. They start talking about their lives, and, they mention things that it's clear that they haven't seen each other in quite some time. Mm-hmm. He asks, he kind of tells her, like, my wife didn't want the girls to come. She didn't want them to miss school or see dad like this. He says, when's the last time you talked to dad? And she says, well, they called me in May for my birthday. But other than that, who knows?
Right.
So Michael tells Louise, well, we can't leave mom here alone.
Which is funny because right now Michael's the one like, we cannot leave her here alone.
Yeah.
We cannot do that to her. Louise says we should have done something, gave her a hug or something while we were in there. Inside, after they're done talking, Louise gets a glass of water. When the front door opens by itself, she walks to shut the door when you see a figure peering behind her in the door. This is another one of those moments where it's just the constant dread, the constant anxiety of what's going on. So Louise shuts and locks the door. She then goes back towards the kitchen, walking past Dad's room, and this time it's Mom in the doorway, not a crazy, scary figure.
Yeah.
Louise says it was just the wind, and this is when we get one of my favorite audio moments of the film.
Every trials and temptations.
Michael, he's sitting at the table. He's listening to her sing. He tells her, you should really get some sleep. And she says, you all should go. It's not what you think. And Michael's like, well, what is it then? And Mom doesn't answer. She just gets up and walks away. Mm-hmm. So everyone's sleeping, and Mom starts chopping up carrots. And then the chair again moves behind her, and she just starts chopping these carrots super aggressively until she chops her own fingers off, you guys. She chops her own fingers off. Yes. This scene is so creepy.
Yeah. Just her face.
Yeah. It's great though.
Julie Oliver touchstone, an angel on earth.
Absolutely.
Great performance.
So it's now Tuesday morning, and both of the siblings are up. They see the blood everywhere, the fingers. They're looking for Mom. They're yelling. This is when Louise finds her hanging in the goat barn. And it's very sad.
Yeah.
She starts screaming for Michael, and he comes in, and they're holding her, and they grab a big bucket, and they're trying to, chop her down. And the sheep, they all run out of the barn, just wherever.
Oh, remember, they grappled that large bucket, the feeding bucket, and they bring it over to get up and chop her down.
Yeah, so it was off on the side, and they moved it over to chop her down. So it's now Tuesday, and Louise is just sobbing. She just lost her mom in a very horrific way.
Right. Everyone is upset, obviously. The siblings sit with their dad, and the home health nurse comes in to see dad. She apologizes to them and says that she made them a roast, good old country, hospitality. The nurse says, I didn't want to say anything before. It wasn't my place, but your mama was seeing things. I didn't like it at all. It was kind of scary. And we find out that this nurse is actually pretty religious.
Yeah.
She's quite a religious person, which religion is a huge undertone throughout the film.
Yeah.
The nurse said she would whisper things, but she wasn't talking to dad like she used to. She used to take care of him all night by herself, and she offers to find someone to help at night. Michael asks, would it be different if we took her over to the hospital?
Louise is like, no, I'll stay here with them. That's what they would want. So she goes to her mother's shop, and she's kind of looking through the clothing that her mother has made, and she finds a dress that has her name on it that her mom had made for her. So she gets very upset from it.
Very emotional.
Looks like a wedding dress almost.
Like she was already preparing for when that day comes.
Yeah, which is so sad. Later, Michael, Louise, and Charlie, they get all the goats rounded up when they're driving on the land, and they see this like animal graveyard. And so Louise asks them to stop, and they go up to the graveyard, and Charlie says this is where Mom would bring some of her favorites.
The favorite ones.
Yeah, she would bury them there. She was like questioning like who would Mom be talking to Michael, and he was like she didn't even know what she was talking about, and this makes Louise mad. Like, why would you even say that?
What I love about this part is Michael, he's like, she chopped up her fucking fingers and made herself die. Like, the emotion on Michael Abbott at this moment is just fucking great. I love this. Great performances all throughout this whole film.
Yeah, because I mean, before this, his demeanor and stuff was
he's always just quiet,
yeah,
reserved, and he actually finally snaps at this moment. Everybody's way of grief, of dealing with things, and he's finally snapping out at people. Is not ever going to make any sense. Louise saying we should have talked to her. Michael saying, yeah, well, we didn't. Again, he's short fused at this point now. He's just lost his mother. We can't think about what happened. We just got to move forward is his way of thinking. And I think this causes a bigger wedge in the family, which family is a big, important thing here. Back at the house, Louise takes a shower when she hears a thud. She says, I need 3 fucking minutes. And she opens the curtain when we get this amazing jump scare. Now, this movie does not have a lot of jump scares. It does not rely on those. They are very, very few and far between. That's part of the tension building of this film. Easily one of the best, scariest jump scares of the whole film right there.
Yeah, for sure. You already feel kind of like exposed when you're in the shower. So I think that just intensifies it.
Yeah.
So Louise, she starts screaming, obviously, for Michael. But when Michael comes in, Dad isn't there. Louise says he was in here. And Michael's like, well, do you want to talk about it? And she was like, no, I'm going to go smoke a cigarette.
Right.
So I'm
going to stress relieve myself right now.
Absolutely. Michael finds Mom's diary or journal, whatever you want to call it. And he starts reading the last page, and then he starts reading it to Louise. And it's like crazy stuff. Like, I know he's there in the darkness. Help me. Please. He's killing David. I can't stop it. Devil. He wants David, and I can't stop it. Like, what?
Just crazy stuff.
Yes. So now it's Thursday, and Michael starts asking Louise, like, how did she even get up there to hang herself? The cop said that it was the tub, but you moved the tub to get her down. And Louise says, I don't know. This is when Louise starts kind of reading into her journal more, and she talks about some more weird stuff, like who's hurting David, he's laughing at me, he's killing him, he's killing me, I'm already dead.
Right.
The siblings drive to the morgue to get all of her belongings that were on her, I guess, and she had these little crosses, and Louise was like, she didn't even go to church. Like,
again, how did religion become a part of her family when their whole family is atheist?
Yeah.
And they don't go to church. They make that very abundantly clear. Back home, Louise is putting lotion on Dad, and he starts coughing. She covers him up. He's still coughing, and a spider comes out of his mouth. She tries to get it, frantically freaking out. When Michael asks, is everything okay? She says it's nothing. She gets up to go and smoke. So this is kind of her way of dealing with things.
Mm-hmm.
Nicotine is her way of coping through all these stressful situations. Michael is just like confused at this point.
Yeah.
She can hear howling outside. She goes in, she goes to bed in Michael's room because he finally just gave up. He's like, I'm going to bed.
Mm-hmm.
But in his room, the light turns on. He gets up to investigate. There's no one there. He shuts the light off. He goes back, and then it turns on again when he gets up to turn it off again.
But he can't hear howling outside his window when he looks out the window for one of the scariest scenes in this film.
Yes.
She was singing the same song while she was singing earlier in the film, and he turns on the light when you get this jump scare of her being right behind him.
I love this whole moment of the film. Like I said, you have that tension.
It's so much tension, anxiety.
Seeing your mother floating out there. And this was all done practically. Something I wanted to talk about. This whole scene was shot practically. Brian Bertino, good on you, man. The scene looks freaking amazing, and it was all practically done. So great.
Yeah. It's now Friday. Louise wakes up and she has lipstick all over her face, and she's like trying to scrub it off frantically. She finds the lipstick in Dad's bed, which is weird. Like,
Pretty odd there.
You're playing pranks on me now, Dad.
Yeah.
This is when the phone rings and Mom on the phone says, "I told you not to come," which is scary again. Michael, he's driving on the property when he sees a priest on the side of the road, and he rolls down his window and he's like, "Can I help you?"
Now, I want to, again, I know I've said this like 6 times.
Yeah.
Of all the things in the film, this is my favorite sequence of events right here. Now, again, I'll probably say this again 3 more times, but as of this moment, this is my favorite sequence in the whole film. And the priest is like, "Michael," and I love this because Xander Berkeley, like, he just plays a creepy guy so well. Like, his ability, and it's a priest on top of it, which makes it that much creepier.
Absolutely.
He says, "You look like your mother," and he hands him a small cross. So we know where she was getting the crosses from. Michael brings him back to the house, and the priest tells him that he started to come and see his mom. She was scared and alone, and he was there for her. He said he wanted to meet them, that she loved them both so much, and I can help if you would like. And Michael's like, I think that you've done enough already. And the priest, because he's reading the journal, and he's like, "I didn't know any of this. I don't know what you're upset with me for." And this is when they're like, our mother didn't even believe in God. And I know I just said it, but this is why this is such an important part for me, because you get one of the best quotes of any horror movie ever at this moment.
What does it matter whether you believe?
You think the wolf?
Cares if you believe he's a wolf? Not if he finds you alone in the woods.
Louise asks him, "What did you say to her?" And he says, "Only the truth." And Michael's like, "Well, your truth." Michael wants him to leave. The priest says, "She needed someone. She was alone. And I think you both know that now." Michael's like, "Is the devil really out there?" And he says, "He's not out there. He's already here," which is, it's so creepy. The way he portrays everything is just amazing, and it's just super creepy.
It really is.
Michael calls his wife on the phone, and he was like, "I want to leave. I want to come home to you. Mom's the only one I had left. And I walk around here and I feel nothing." And he says, "Give my babies a kiss for me." This is when Louise is in the sheep barn and she's reading more of Mom's diary. And one of the lines is, "He is everywhere. And the bottles of the string, they cling together."
Yeah. And you do kind of see a shadow in the background behind her at this point. The 2 siblings sit on the porch. Louise says she wasn't crazy. I'm not crazy. Michael tells her he saw Mom through the window last night, but it wasn't her, and it was fucking scary.
I mean, I can only imagine. That
right.
would be very scary.
Well, this is also a part of growth.
Yeah.
Because Michael's starting to open up. He's showing his vulnerability at this point. He's putting his trust in his sister. A lot of this movie is family love and how important love and connection and bonds are between your family.
Absolutely.
They go inside. You hear howling while everyone is sleeping. Michael is awoke by like the scraping noise, like this creepy scraping noise. Louise is awake and tells Michael there's something out there. The wolf is still howling. Louise looks out the window and you can see that the priest is standing there. And Louise is like, "Hey, it's that priest from earlier."
He opens the door. The priest says, "Come outside." Michael's like, "What are you doing here?" They turn on the light and they look at him, and his eyes are white. And in a demonic voice, he says, "Want some rope?" Which is such an awful, awful thing to say.
Especially after what just happened to their mother. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
This is when the phone rings and they turn around, and then they turn back around to him, and he's gone. Michael walks outside to look for him, and Luis just takes the phone off the hook. Like, we're done with this phone. Mom's calling. Who knows who's on the other line? So this is when we go to Charlie, who's on the property at his trailer, and someone walks in there, and he's kind of like hiding and loading his gun.
yeah. He walks out of his bedroom at this moment, but like I said, he was calling for help. Like, he was making a call for help. It's Luis, but she's cutting herself. Charlie telling her to leave. He falls to the ground asking, you know, what do you want from me? What do you want? She says, "You did this to me." Charlie takes a shotgun and he shoots himself. He takes his own life at this point. Very, very upsetting. Rough. It's now Saturday. They're outside. Michael says there's no tracks, no footprints, you know, talking about the priest.
How does that happen?
Right. Michael asks if Charlie knew the guy, maybe. And Luis says, "I haven't been able to get a hold of Charlie for a couple days now."
So they don't know yet.
Yeah, they don't know yet. Luis says we need to take Dad to the hospital. He can't stay here now. You've seen his face. You know, Michael's like, this can't be real. You know, none of this can be real.
Luis, she calls the priest, and he answers. He's like, "Who is this?" And she tells him it's Luis. And he was like, "Well, how did you get my number?" She's like, "You gave that to me yesterday." He's like, "This is directly to my hotel room. Where are you calling from?" This is when she tells him that she's calling from Texas, Thurber, Texas.
Texas.
And he's like, "I've never even been to Thurber, Texas, or Texas at all. I'm in Chicago." And she was like, "You don't know Virginia Stalker?" And he says, "You're trying to be funny. Her name was Louise. I guess you know that, don't you? You don't have a daughter, do you? She killed herself a long time ago." And he was like, "Why would you do this? You sound just like her." And then he hangs up on her.
So not only has this guy never been to Texas, but whatever this entity is so evil that it picked him on purpose to torture him too. So he gets a call from someone named Louise that sounds like his daughter, who unfortunately ended her own life a long time ago. So now this is a memory that he has to dredge up too. That's how evil this entity truly is. The doctor comes and evaluates Dad and asks them if they noticed any changes since they've arrived on the scene, pretty much. He's getting weaker, and I don't think he'll make it to the highway. It's too late for that, though. You know, the doctor's like, "We can't even get him out of the room. There's no way. He has to stay here." Louise says it's our choice, and the doctor says, "I can't let you kill him." Michael talks to the home nursing. "You see people at their weakest. That must take a toll on you." She says, "That's not all I see. I see lots of love, and sometimes I'm the only one there when it happens."
Which is such a sad concept of thinking of a loved one having to pass away by himself.
Yes. Holding onto a nurse's hand that he barely knows. He tells her, you know, "My mom thought something was coming for them." The nurse says, "Michael, I can feel the fear inside of this house."
She says, "I know you guys don't believe in God, but there is love in this house, and a soul needs love to keep it safe." Michael says, "I hope you're right." And the nurse is like, "So do I."
Me too.
Outside, there's a goat limping. One of his legs is gone. There's blood all over. So Michael goes to check on the rest of the goats, and they're all dead. The entire flock, or whatever you call them.
Flock of goats? Sure.
So Luis is like, "A wolf wouldn't do that. Not like this." Michael says, "I'm going to call another doctor tomorrow." And Luis says, "She told us not to come."
She said the thing.
So they burn all the dead goats. Luis asks Michael how many are left, and he says only 5. He says, "I'm gonna go sit with the goats, the rest of them." And she's like, "Well, I'll come sit with you." And he was like, "No, you need to sit with Dad."
Right, because again, he's showing vulnerability, but also at this moment, you know, this nurse said something that stuck with me. A soul should never be left to die alone. You know, and again, the vulnerability. She's like, "I'm scared," and he's like, "And so am I." You know, "I'm scared too." Michael is with the sheep when his wife calls. The bottles start banging together. You know, Michael, "Go on and get," you know, because he's still not that scared. He hears his mom singing that song again, and she is walking naked towards him. And, you know, obviously now he's really freaking out. His deceased mother, who took her own life, is walking towards him naked, singing a beautiful song that is totally terrifying in this moment. He says, "You're not real." He closes his eyes, he opens them, and she's gone. Behind him, she says, "Come to me." He puts his own knife up to his neck, but with his other hand, he's trying to get the knife away.
Luis is inside laying with Dad when the door opens. Dad starts breathing hard, and you see this shadow on them and on the mattress, like kind of moving.
Yeah.
The shadow monster is now above Dad, and he's really heavily breathing now. Luis just cries and then looks over, and Dad is gone. He's on the freaking ceiling,
Yeah.
guys. He says, "Run away." Luis wakes up, and it's now Sunday. Michael's gone, nowhere to be found. A young girl knocks at the door. She tells Luis she's Charlie's granddaughter. She said, "We've been trying to call, but no one answered. My grandpa died. He shot himself 2 nights ago, and we thought you should know." Luis says, "I just seen him. That's not possible."
And remember, they never put the phone back on the hook.
Right.
You know, when they took that phone off the hook, they've legit been trying to call, but can't get a call. Back in those days when you took the phone off the hook, that was like shutting your phone off, kids. You took the phone off the hook.
Yeah.
She says, "I found him." Luis tells her to come in. The girl says, "Do you smell him?" "I bet you do." Now you're like, wait a minute.
What's going on here?
What happened?
Yeah.
He's close now. He's rotting. She tells her to get out, and she's behind her telling her he's rotting all alone, all alone, all alone. It gets like demonic as she's saying it.
All alone. All alone.
Little girl.
Luis tries to call Michael, but he won't answer. The nurse walks in. Michael answers and apologizes. She's like, "Where are you?" He says, "I'm driving. I've been driving all night." He says, "I knew that you would stay." Luis is crying, "You left me," which is a complete flip from the beginning. Remember, at the beginning, Michael was like, "We need to stay here.
Yeah.
We need to be here for them." But he's lost his mother. And that was all he had left besides his family. And which is a cold way of putting it, but I'm not the one that put it that way, because Michael says, "You need to go, Luis." She asks, "What about Dad?" And he tells her, "You know what? He's already gone."
He says, "There's nothing we can do. It won't wait much longer. Save yourself." Like, pretty much, I have my own family to think about. This is when the nurse, she starts carving herself with her sewing needle and tells Louise to leave and starts like banging her head on the wall. The nurse grabs Louise and is pulling her across the floor, crying, "Jesus, I know you're with me." So even with all this going, she's still holding on.
She still has her faith.
Yes. So then she stabs herself in the eyes with her sewing needles, both eyes. And she's standing there, she's all bloody, and she collapses onto the floor. Michael, he's making his way home. When he gets there, he's calling for his family. No one is answering. The record player is going, so he calls his phone, his wife's phone, Becky, and it's ringing in the kitchen. So he walks in the kitchen, and his family is all dead. His wife killed the girls with a knife, and then she killed herself.
Didn't see it coming, did ya?
He breaks down and just starts puking and sobbing.
This is one of those moments where you're just like, the demon is not at only the farm.
Right.
We can finally start really saying it's a demon. We know that it's a demon now. We've been calling it the entity and whatever, but it is truly, truly a demon, and we know that now. And what did he say to Luis? "I have my own family to think about now." So much like when he was in the barn, he takes that knife out and he cuts his own throat while he's sitting there. If I can't be with my mother, if I can't be with my wife and my kids, there's nothing left here.
Yeah.
I have nothing left. He looks over and his girls and his wife are not there. They then walk into the house, finding him dead on the floor.
That's a twist. That's very twisty.
The demon is putting these visions in his head, and it's one of those things where how much of this is real and how much is fake. The doctor that came, was he real? The one that said he won't make it to the highway. We have to keep him here. That's what I love about this movie. Up to this point, there's nothing concrete on what is real and what is a vision put in your head by the demon. Back on the farm, Luis wakes up and Dad is, just barely, he's agonizing.
He's agonally breathing.
I don't even know what that means.
Agonally. Like not breathing enough to have life.
She's a respiratory therapist. Luis says, "I'm sorry." She gets up, walks outside, and she just tumbles, She hears Dad coughing and starts crying, saying, "I can't." She walks into his room and she says, "I'm here." She hears Michael screaming, "Leave," at this point. So now the demon's playing with her again. Then he says, "Luis, help me." She says, "Stay away from me." Dad's gasping. The floorboards are creaking. Luis says, "I love you. I won't leave you." The creaking stops. She says, "Don't leave me," talking to Dad at this moment. Dad takes his last breath. Luis then hears Mom singing. She says, "Mama," and then Dad jumps up and presumably kills Luis to end the film. So, the ending is quite dark.
It's very dark, yes.
And even wicked. See, now I did the thing. I love this ending, and I love how this movie does not force it down our throats what's happening. You know, this is not, we're not being force-fed the plot. You can create your own ways of, is, you know, like I said, was the doctor real?
Right.
What was real and what wasn't? So,
and just the whole thing of, you know, loneliness and dread, and you know, your family, and they never come to visit you, and that's why the demon was, you know, led into this.
That's why he preyed on this family,
because, you know, they were so separated. It's really a sad concept, honestly.
Yeah. And I know we said it at the beginning, but I did say this is one of my favorite horror movies of the last 20 years. Easily probably one of the best horror movies made in the last 20 years. So me personally, I'm going to give this movie a 9 out of 10. I know, overly critical me.
Oh my goodness.
There are some questionable decisions about like the dates.
Yeah.
Like it's Tuesday, a 2-minute thing happens, and then it's Wednesday. There are some questionable things there. But overall, the score, the acting is just phenomenal on all sides. The direction, Brian Bertino, I'm so stoked to see what LT has coming up for us. It's just a movie that I very much love, and like I said, it's in my top 3 favorite horror movies of all time, and it came out 3 years ago. So that shows the impact that this movie had on me.
For sure. I'm gonna give it a 7.5. I'm gonna be the critical one this time, guys.
Feels good.
It feels good to switch it over. Like you said, you know, it's scary once you think you're desensitized to horror, and this kind of brings it back like, no, you're not, which I love about. I do like the message that it's trying to portray, and you know, it's dark, and it just, like, your anxiety is going the entire time. Like you said, the score just intensifies it.
Right.
There's it's kind of a slow burn, which is why I am giving it a lower score, I think. But
what I love about this type of slow burn, it actually has that explosive ending.
It does. So you do get the explosive ending that you want,
The
but
minute
it
Michael
takes a
gets
while
home-
to get there.
The minute Michael gets home on,
Yeah.
you're just, you know, balls to the wall at this point.
Absolutely.
But even though it's a slow burn, you do have huge moments like the Charlie scene, the mom scene.
Yeah.
There are definitely things in the slow burn that, you know, that they're fishing. You know, they're fishing. They're teasing you with that hook.
Yeah.
So
I agree with that for sure.
So we really do appreciate it, guys. And if you haven't seen this movie, it is available on Shudder. It is available on Blu-ray. Cannot recommend this film enough. So make sure you guys, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. It helps out the channel more than you could ever know. And please follow Sledgehammer Horror on social media. All our links are down in the description. But until next time, keep talking horror.
Stay who you are.
And we'll see you guys soon.
Bye.